Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Give me a mountain with lots to do. Give me the sunshine, give me a dew. Give me something simple and true. All I need is sunshine and a cool, refreshing mountain dew. So give me my good friends, give me a dew.
Grab some friends and an ice-cold Mountain Dew today.
Mountain Dew.
Hello and welcome back to the Psycholegal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm the therapist, Tess Brigham.
And I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
So today we are going to talk about Natalia Grace and Gypsy Rose Blanchard. We have been getting a lot of requests to cover these cases, but so many podcasts have talked about both of these cases, talked about and recapped these documentaries that are connected to Natalia Grace and, Gypsy's, Release. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Release from prison. It feels like it's been talked about a lot, but our Uncle Bill sent us this article from the Washington Post. It came out on January 11th of this year, 2024. Gypsy Rose, Natalia Grace, and the Girlbossification of Trauma Victims. The fame machine has a strange way of processing other people's nightmarish childhoods. And this is written by Perspective by Monica Hesse.
Yeah.
And it was a really, really interesting article, so I highly recommend checking it out. But so we're going to talk about both cases, but we're really going to talk about this idea of what a strange cultural phenomenon this has been with these two women who are obviously victims, and their victimhood unfortunately made them perpetrators as well. And just the way in which media, society, that we sort of see these women, in our culture and the fascination.
Yeah. And also the way that their trauma, well, first of all, we now use their trauma as entertainment. And more and more of these shows are about women's trauma as entertainment. And then we kind of gloss over, the trauma.
Yes.
And kind of sanitize the story. And then it's kind of like, okay, well, now everything's great. You've moved past that. Now what are you going to do? You know? And then, you're going to be an influencer? You're going to do this or that? Then there was another story recently. Do you remember the Turpin children that were basically starved to death and chained to their beds and anything? I remember the two of the daughters went on Diane Sawyer and we're talking about what had happened to them. And then after they kind of recount their story, they start talking about how they hope to be pop singers, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
and then, because it's almost like, well, if you've gone through this horrible thing, if you come out and talk about it, we'll reward you.
Yes.
With some celebrity. And, maybe we'll give you a chance if you're a good singer.
Yes.
And even just look at Britney Spears, and that whole thing and how her trauma is still playing out,
Yeah.
in front of us.
Well, it's also what I think is really interesting, and it comes back to this idea of the popularity of true crime and why are we all so fascinated by true crime? And I'm interested in true crime. I always have been. And I do think there's lots of elements that are really interesting, but yes, the majority of true crime is about victimizing women. They are usually the victims. And what what we're seeing now with so many podcasts covering true crime and all of these documentaries, is that, and I remember Dateline, Josh Mankiewicz talking about this one time, which is, we always have to wait till the conclusion of a story, right? They do these updates, but really we hear a story once the person has been prosecuted and there's an end to it. We don't hear things in the middle. We don't hear things in the beginning. We don't hear things in the middle. What is produced for us a lot of times is the end, right? Where you talk about a show like My Favorite Murder or Women in Crime, and they are telling us the complete story of what's happened. And I think that there's this real desire for what they call, post-traumatic growth. This idea that at the end of every story, there has to be this idea of you've overcome this really hard thing.
Something
and now,
good has to come out of this.
Something good has to come out of it. And there has to be this, now you're happy. Now you're here, right? Like the ending can't be down. It has to be you're triumphant over these horrible things that have happened to you. And I do believe in post-traumatic growth. I do believe I've had things happen to me. You do have to, when you're going through it, you do have to believe that there is a reason for this and I've got to get to the other side of this and things will be good. But I will say that once something is over, the strangest thing happens is, when my whole thing was over, by 2023 was such a hard year for me because it was sort of the first year where I was sick, and I was the first year I wasn't sick. And that was harder than all the other years because suddenly everything's coming at me like, oh my God, you just went through all of this.
Yeah. Because you were in survival mode.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my God, I went through all this and this was so hard, and how this affected my life and how I feel today.
Yeah.
And I don't have a lot of strength yet. And it's because I went through all of these things. I mean, and I think that we have to believe that there's something good on the other side of hardships. It's really hard to get through otherwise. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel this way. But it's this interesting thing where with these women, we're really pushing. We really okay, now Gypsy has to be perfect, or Gypsy has to be healed, or Gypsy has to be this now. And we're pushing her out into the spotlight. And I don't think this is the healthiest thing for her right now.
It's almost like they have to justify themselves. Why should we, you come here and tap dance for us. And say, well, show us why we shouldn't look at you as a criminal, or look at you as a killer, or look at you, how you have been being portrayed. You have to prove your redemption to society.
Yes.
Yeah. So, we'll start with Gypsy Rose. This one is interesting because just to recap, if you've been living under a rock. So this woman, Gypsy Rose Blanchard, she was raised by, her mother had Munchausen's syndrome by proxy. And so what she would do is she would make up fake illnesses, saying that her daughter, she told people her daughter had leukemia, muscular dystrophy. She had a feeding tube put in.
Ugh, that feeding tube.
Yeah, she shaved her head and put her in a wheelchair. There was nothing wrong with this girl.
Yeah.
Nothing. This is all completely made up. And she did it for attention, for herself. She did it to get free things. I think someone donated a house.
Yeah, so they got a house. They went to Disney World.
Yeah.
I mean, Dee Dee never really worked. I mean, they really did. I think there was probably a lot of GoFundMes. I think she took advantage of Hurricane Katrina in many different ways. One was to say all the medical records were floated away.
Right.
We can't access them. But the other one is to say, I'm a victim of Hurricane Katrina. Let me apply for money and grants.
Federal aid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they moved from Louisiana to Missouri after Hurricane Katrina. And the father was kind of in and out of her life because the mother,
didn't want him around.
Didn't want him around because she didn't want anyone seeing what she was doing. And so, I don't know why he didn't. Anyway,
I think he was also very young. He was 17?
Oh, yeah.
And she was 24.
She was 24. He was 17.
Yeah.
They hooked up. She got pregnant, and he's like, well, I guess, I have to marry her or be with her. And yeah, he didn't know what he didn't know what he was doing, and he was kind of helpless. But he later got involved in much more involved in her life. So anyway, this goes on for years and years. And finally, when she's 24, this is 2015, she's 24, and Gypsy's really starting to get sick of this.
Yeah.
And she is now, social media is around. She goes on social media. She meets up with this guy who,
on a Christian dating website.
Christian, yeah, there you go. And so the guy becomes her quote unquote boyfriend. I can't remember how often they really even, if they even saw each other.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, she was 24 at this time. You know that she had ran away originally at 19. She meets this guy at a sci-fi convention, runs away with him at 19. Dee Dee tracks her down, tells the guy she's a minor. So the guy freaks out, and she goes back. And so after that, Dee Dee smashed her computer and physically restrained her to her bed.
Yeah, she chained her to her bed.
And so you've got to think about this in terms of like 5 years of plotting. Like, Gypsy already knows this. There's something off. I got to get away from this woman. Yeah. So you're 5 years after that, like in a prison cell, almost like plotting. So by the time this guy comes around, she's pretty determined.
Yeah. I mean, and the mother's killing her with all of this stuff, and she does. She's 24 years old and she looks like she's about 8.
Yes.
Her growth is totally stunted.
And she kept her she wanted her to look like a baby. She wanted her to look young,
she put like princess, dresses and stuff on her, and she had all these baby dolls, and it was very, very sick, very sick, and she was just being tortured, and I can't believe someone didn't intervene.
Well, there was an anonymous, because I was looking through, I went and did some research. In 2009, there was an anonymous report, and 2 caseworkers showed up, but they didn't find anything. And that's the thing, is what would happen is that anytime a doctor pushed her or questioned anything, Dee Dee would be like, okay, bye.
Yeah, she's move on. Wasn't there one doctor who actually did something and he reported her?
Well,
because he's like, something's wrong here. Oh, yeah, he did. I think he reported it to, I don't know if it was Child Protective Services or what, and they did nothing about it.
Yeah.
Or they...
And unfortunately, right, you've worked with you've done this kind of work before where you see they have to go. There's so many reports have to happen, It's such a slow process in some ways, but that's why it's so important to report anything. Just build cases. But and I think the other part of it too is you've got to understand, and we hear Gypsy say this, this is her only parent, her only lifeline.
It's the only human being she has any
relationship with or connection with, and this person is telling you something, and you forget how much a parent and a parent's opinion and what they think and say, how heavily that weighs on you, what they think, and the process of learning how to recognize, I have my own thoughts, or I believe in this, I believe in that, and to disagree with your parents, that is a 10-year process for people. I mean, it takes forever as it is. So you've got to understand.
Oh yeah, she's completely dependent on her,
and she's a hostage.
She's a hostage. So then she meets another guy online,
this Nicholas Godejohn.
Yes, and they start plotting to kill Dee Dee, and Gypsy Rose is desperate, and she's just been tortured her entire life, and so I don't remember all the details of it leading up to the killing. What I do know is that he physically killed Dee Dee.
Yeah, it was in June of 2015. He comes to the house. He stabs Dee Dee 17 times. Gypsy's in the bathroom, with, not listening to anything. And then apparently originally he wanted to rape Dee Dee before he killed her.
God.
And Gypsy said, no, you can rape me. So apparently, this is where I've read, and I've heard this on other podcasts, that apparently afterwards they have sex. I don't know if this is the first time she's ever had sex, but she allows him to live out this rape fantasy.
Oh my God.
And while mom is dead in the other, in the other room. And so, and then they leave, they escape. they post stuff on social media so people find Dee Dee, but at first everyone thinks that maybe Gypsy's been kidnapped because they think she's sick.
Yeah.
And then the truth comes out.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, just hideous.
Yeah.
So, this didn't go to trial, right? She'd had like a plea agreement.
She pled out in 2016 to second degree murder, got 10 years, and she had to do 85% of it.
Okay, yeah,
so
she did
eight and a half years.
And
And then Go to John was he became guilty of first degree murder in 2018 and got life in prison. And I think there was some talk about because he apparently is autistic and what's going on. But you can see, I think these were I think this is what needed to happen because he's very mentally ill and he was a dangerous person. Like he will kill again. Like if he's having these fantasies, he is not well. But it is interesting that they get these very different, they plotted it together, she didn't stop him. And in other cases, they would have had the exact same.
Oh, I know. Well, she's a very sympathetic victim.
Yeah.
I think if she hadn't had this history, it would have been a conspiracy case and they would have gotten the same sentence. So, so it's leading up to the time where she's going to be released. And, there's been movies and documentaries made about her. And she actually, I think was fairly, active, like she's really into social media and different stuff. And I think, in prison, I think she was kind of, still trying to interact with the outside world. I think she repaired her relationship with her father and she has a stepmother and 2 half siblings who actually, before this crime happened, they were a part of her life and but the mother made it very difficult, but they were really trying. And then obviously when the mother's gone, they have pictures of, they would visit her often in prison. They talked to her that, this was all she had left. This is it. So she developed strengthened her relationship with that part of her family. And so before her release, which was just in December of 2023, the family obviously got a deal to make this, it's lifetime, what is it called? Prison Confessions that was released in January. Although I can't find it on Lifetime. You can only find clips on YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to buy it separately?
Well, I don't know. I couldn't find it. And then when I found it, it was like, oh, you can buy it or rent it for $10.
Oh.
And then I was like, but all this stuff's on YouTube. So, and
so I watched a lot of the YouTube clips. And so we find out that Gypsy did have men writing to her and, who wanted to marry her or date her. Anyway, this guy, Ryan, on a whim, and this is so goofy, and he's a school teacher.
Yes.
And he ended up getting fired from his job because of this. But he writes to Gypsy Rose and then she writes him back. And he is just so flattered.
Yes. He was thrilled.
He's like, oh my God, all the people who write, hundreds of people are writing it. And she chose to write back to me. The bar is really low with Ryan. But so they start corresponding. He starts coming to visit her. They eventually get married.
Yes.
In prison.
And again, the stepmom and dad are like, can you just date? Do you have to get married? What is the deal?
They got married because she wanted to be able to go live with him in Louisiana when she was released, because he's also from Louisiana.
Got it. Okay, then that makes a lot more sense about the clips I watched where they were telling her she needed to leave Missouri and go back. I was like, why do they want her to go so badly? But
So anyway, the family gets this deal, negotiates this deal with Lifetime to document all this, and they have the exclusive footage of Ryan and the parents and the siblings going up to Missouri. They rent a house. It's a few days after Christmas. They're going to celebrate Christmas together when she gets out. And so, you see all the clips of all this happening and, they're talking about everything that's led up to this point. And so she is released and she goes back to the house and she's opening all her Christmas presents. Yeah. And then the state of Missouri, the parole people, say, you've got to leave. She's like, well, can't I just spend the night here tonight? We're celebrating Christmas and
Yeah.
we'll leave in the morning, you know?
Yeah.
And I
And
didn't
that's
see,
weird because it's a little bit like, why wasn't this all worked out ahead of time? Like, why is this news to you? Why is
Yeah.
this, like, what is happening here?
They had to have known her plans. She was picked up like in the zero dark 30, like
because you get out at midnight or something.
So what is she supposed to do? Or maybe it's like 4 a.m. I think it's like early morning. But yeah, what? You're just going to hop in the car and drive to Louisiana?
I think that's what they thought. Or maybe I don't know what the rules are in terms of parole, right? Because you have to check in with your parole officer, and maybe on one end they said, sure, you can do all this, and then on the other end in Louisiana they're like, no, she can't. I don't know. It just seems very odd that this isn't worked out. You've worked a lot of stuff out already.
Yeah, a lot
Why
of
haven't you worked this
details.
out? Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't watch the next clip. I'm not quite sure what happened after that. But we do know that like the next week, the first week of January, she goes on a media tour.
Yes.
And which was obviously planned out in advance. And I think I heard, they hired a media person, to book all these things because she's on The View. She's interviewed by, Deborah Roberts on ABC News. And then she goes on like the kind of more unsavory ET, Entertainment Tonight, and Access Hollywood. And that's where she talks about how, her sex with Ryan is fire. And the D is great. And because people online are like poking fun at him.
Yeah.
And she's defending her man.
Yeah. But again, I think that's a great example of bad boundaries.
Yeah.
Like why in God's name no one should be going on social media and saying the D is fire.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And maybe that makes me a bit of a prude, but like nobody likes
especially when you just got out of prison for murder.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. In this whole media tour, it was as if the murder never happened.
Mm-hmm. Well, when she was on The View, wasn't Joy Behar confused because Joy forgot that she was a murderer?
Well, I saw the clip. It wasn't that she forgot. It was just that she said something to the effect of, well, you didn't do anything wrong. And then Gypsy says, well, I did kill my mother. And and she's like, oh, well, yeah, I know, but that's the thing. It had gotten to the point where people are already forgetting.
Yeah.
Access Hollywood is not asking her about her mother. Mm-hmm. She's asking her about, her sex life, you know? I mean, it's already being erased, and they're talking about, oh, what are your future plans? And when are you going to start a family? I mean, it's just like, wow, we're just erasing the trauma, erasing everything. And she's very pleased to be talking about all this stuff. Yeah. She's in a great mood, and
she's very, very happy. She wants to go work with Kim Kardashian and, do work on social justice, which again, I think is a good thing, but is no one stopping and saying, well, gosh, maybe this isn't the best thing for her. Right. Maybe she should be in some deep deep therapy.
Because also serving 8.5 years in prison is traumatic.
Yes.
Okay.
Though she does say the first day of prison, she walks out into the yard and she's like, I felt free for the first time because she could sit down and talk to people her own age. She could have conversations. She could have opinions. I mean, that's frightening when you think about the fact that prison is the freest, much like the Melendez brothers, the freest she's ever felt.
Yeah.
And
that's scary.
And that's the trauma. And I'm not saying that I think that we should be chastising Gypsy Rose or that she is, it's all bad. It's just bad. It's just more of, we're really, and this is what the article talks about too, we're really glossing over a lot, where there's this line in the article, the Washington Post article, there's something weird about the public reintroductions of Natalia Grace Barnett and Gypsy Rose Blanchard. The way we rubberneck over their past trauma, but then expect it to be neatly resolved by the time they hit our television screens. And it's a familiar pattern by now. And then she talks about the Turban daughters.
Yeah.
And how they want to be singers now. And just how this is, I think what it does is it does a real disservice to what it means to be traumatized,
Right.
what it means to be a victim and then have to be a perpetrator in order to be free or in order to, process the trauma, whatever it is. And Talia Grace's story is a little bit different in that way, but like this is the part that we're just glossing right over. And I think what happens is that we forget that trauma, and it's called trauma for a reason, which is that it's not that it just happens to you, that it stays with you, that it defines you, that it becomes a part of who you are. And, that we just don't have time for in our culture. We have lots of time for the bad stuff, but we have very little time for you getting over it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it happens. Because you'll see people who went through something, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, come back and talk about, how, they're still traumatized. And even though she said she's in therapy,
which is good,
which is great, but my God, it's like it's not just, oh, she's out, everything's great. She's got 6 million followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
That's the first thing she asked for. I don't know if you saw this clip.
Oh, the
when
phone.
She got in the car with Ryan. First thing she wanted was her phone and installed Instagram. I think he'd already installed it for her. She was ready to go. She was like, I'm out, But yeah, that was very strange. But I think her media tour is over.
Yeah. I mean, but the other thing too is that I'm with the family on this, which is I understand she wanted to get married to Ryan so she could go live with him in Louisiana. And I think that he's taking care of his nephew. So I think there's some reasons why maybe he can't move. But at the same time, it's a little bit like, what kind of guidance is she getting? Because I would be telling her, like, stay in Missouri, be close to your family, get into therapy, start working on yourself. If you and this guy are going to work,
I
it'll
think
work.
her family's from Louisiana.
Oh, but what about her dad and the stepmom?
Yeah,
Aren't they in Missouri or are they in Louisiana too? Then I'm wrong.
They went to Missouri to pick her, to have
her up.
The reunion, but they're from Louisiana. I think.
But I just don't get why, I don't know. I just don't get why she has to be married and have this relationship. And I just don't think she's ready for all of this stuff.
She's not, but she's probably feeling like,
I know she wants to move forward.
She needs somebody.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway,
so that was one story that has been in the news. And then this Curious Case of Natalia Grace documentary, everyone's talking about it. Everyone, is doing podcasts about it. It's a little too disturbing for me.
Yeah.
Not to mention it's like, 10 episodes or something and ongoing. So I have not watched a full episode of this. I've seen trailers, I've seen clips, I've seen people talking about it, whatever. So, but this is also a case where of a woman being severely traumatized and kind of used,
very used
by
a lot of people,
these filmmakers. I think this I've heard on another podcast, they brought this up and I was like, wow, they're right. Like the quality of this quote unquote documentary, if you even want to call it that, is really poor because basically it's narrated by this crazy Michael Bennett.
Yeah.
The father, Barnett, sorry. Who's nuts. All you have to do is watch him for like 2 minutes.
This guy is such a piece of work.
He narrates the entire thing. And I think, and the adoptive mother who's gone out of the picture, she's not even a part of this. And does Natalia have any part in the original one? Like she doesn't. The first season, right? She doesn't speak at all. That's why the second one is called Natalia Speaks. So no one's really telling her story.
No, we're hearing it all from Michael. I also I just felt like I didn't want to go down the rabbit hole of this.
Yeah.
But what I did watch, I have to give her a shout out. Stephanie Harlow, she's got like tons of followers. So I think she's probably doing very well. She did a 3-part on the documentary, but she also does research, and she brings in things that she thinks and others. And she does a very, very good job. So I listened to that, and I read a bunch of stuff online. And I've watched enough videos of that Michael Barnett to woof.
Yeah.
But I guess, yeah, he's telling the story in the first season. The second season, Natalia comes in, and then even that leaves on a cliffhanger because there's another story that's coming out. And that's why basically Natalia said, hey, I'm fine. She gets on social media and says, hey, I'm fine, everybody. I cannot talk about what's going on in my life because that's part of the next chapter of this documentary. But I think the documentary and what you're talking about that's so interesting is I always think to myself, God, what a time to be a documentary filmmaker, because documentaries have taken on a life of their own because they are really, they're good fodder for podcasts. They're great to recap.
Yeah.
And because of this true crime and the nature of what's going on, and there's so many media channels and there's so much stuff out there to consume, documentaries seem to be, they're coming fast and furious, but I think the downside is that they're not really spending enough time, like really thinking through, like, what does it mean to be a documentary filmmaker?
Yeah, I would argue these are not documentaries.
Yeah.
I would call it a docu-series or just a show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're doing them like in seasons just for as long as they can get away with doing it.
Oh, God. And doing episode, like, making something 7 episodes that could really be 2.
Yeah. But also documentary filmmaking, it's kind of quasi-journalism. Like a true documentary filmmaker, it takes them years, because they have to like look under every rock. They have to research everything. They've got to get it right. They're telling a story.
Yes.
And it's got to be right. And it's got to
be unbiased.
Unbiased, and it has to be credible. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So here they have this wackadoo who's the only narrator of this show. They're using like these murky photos or brief clips from phone videos from Michael. They depend on reenactments.
Mm-hmm.
That's always a telltale sign.
Yeah.
When there's a ton of reenactments. This is not a documentary. And they don't tell the full story of Natalia Grace. I've just pieced together things that, first of all, just to be abandoned in an orphanage to begin with, the doctor apparently told her mother when she was born, and she had this rare form of dwarfism, and they told the mother
born in the Ukraine.
They told the mother basically just don't even take her home.
Mm-hmm.
Just leave her here. She's not going to ever have a normal life, and
she's going to have very expensive surgeries.
So, and since this woman doesn't have any money,
and you're young, you'll have more kids.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I think they tried to adopt her out to someone in Ukraine that fell through, I believe, at least one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then she was brought to the U.S. and adopted. So this is before the Barnetts.
Yeah. Because she was in some other homes.
Yeah. There was a couple of adoptions that fell through in the United States. And one of which was a family of little people who wanted her. And somehow they didn't get her. These other wackadoos got her. And so she has never made an attachment to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how old she is at this point, a couple of years old. But yeah, that's why these babies who are in orphanages and never held and have no attachments. What do you think is going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she's going to have some issues.
And we've seen that where kids who were in the orphanages in Ukraine and these other countries, where all it takes is, a year of being in that orphanage or 6 months of being in that orphanage, that we forget how vital and important the first year of life is, and that attachment and being held and being touched and all of that of what a baby needs. I mean, and you think about what you learn when you first have a child. It's like, wrap them up in this burrito thing, hold them tight, skin to skin contact, like all of this is. And they've done these studies. They did studies where, with kids who were held more than other kids and what happened. So she was already struggling, by age one.
To say the least, yeah.
And so she was born in 2003. This becomes this big thing. But she was adopted by the Barnetts in 2010. So she was told that she was 6. She's 6'7" at this point. And so she's 6. And this is now what? The 4th family? 5th family?
Yeah.
2nd country?
Psych Legal Pop will be right back after these messages.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love, with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
It seemed like the mother, the adoptive mother, Christine, she had a son who was autistic, and but he was, very high functioning, and she did all this stuff for him. And she felt like she was some sort of like disabled, she could cure savant, yes, cure whatever for disabled children. She she wanted Natalia because she saw her as like a project.
Yes. Well, what's interesting too is in the beginning, in the first, in that first season where we get mainly Michael Barnett, he comes out early and says, we had everything. We had hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank. We had 14 couches. He brags about the 14 couches. We had a McMansion. We had this, we had that. We had everything together. And what I learned from Stephanie Harlow is that, they adopted Natalia in 2010. The book, The Spark, that Christine wrote about her son came out in 2013. And that's when they went on that media tour and all of that apparently they didn't, like, Michael bought that Corvette of his in 2011. So he very clearly, he portrays it very early on, and you can see this, right? Our lives were amazing. We were successful. We were incredible. And then Natalia came into our life. But it's a little bit like, I don't think they were riding so high and in 2010. I don't know exactly. Do you know what I mean? I agree with you that I think Natalia was a project, but I also think that their wealth was, this narrative that Michael's trying to force down our throats, which is, Natalia ruined everything. It's like, no. You didn't have, you were struggling before her. These things happened that were this, and then all these other things happened.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's a mess. It's just.
Yeah. And, what else? Like, there's this. Yeah. So this whole thing about her age.
Yes.
And so she's adopted by them when she's 6 or 7. And they say that, right away they noticed that she had pubic hair. That this whole thing about pubic hair. Well, did you take her to a doctor? Like, did you do anything to see, like, the whole case basically hung on that one point.
Yes. Well,
and they decided, she couldn't possibly be a child. She must be an adult.
Well, and what the craziest part is the way Michael tells the story, because I saw these clips of him telling the story of, like, first he hears the scream, this horrendous scream, and then he goes into the bathroom, and then Christine has to, like, take him aside and tell her. I'm like, then why is she screaming? Like, that makes no sense. You already know he's a horrible, like, he's such a liar. He's such a big fat liar. But she had pubic hair, but they never tell us, like, how much pubic hair, because I'm sorry, kids develop.
It could be just like some
a few
Peach
hairs
fuzz,
or
yeah.
this and that. Listen, people, I'm a hairy person.
Yeah.
Like, I have a lot of hair. Like my poor son has a lot of hair. Like, you know, it's just a little bit like everybody grows at different
Right.
rates. She has dark hair, you know, dark hair. It's more. So that's like, okay, so what? You know, a few hairs, and it was that, and the fact that they saw maybe period blood or there was blood, and okay,
girls can start their periods at like 8 or 9 years
Yeah.
old, or 17 years old.
Yeah.
like every person is different. It doesn't.
yeah,
Yeah, they just. I think that's something they just made up after the fact.
yes,
You know, when they decided that, you know, this girl was too much work for them,
yeah,
you know, because she had a lot of psychological problems because of she'd been abandoned and traumatized and abused.
Well, and the other thing too is this whole thing where Michael talks about how they had this other girl that they were going to adopt from Haiti, and then, you know, that quote unquote fell through, but Haiti had this horrible, devastating, was it an earthquake?
It was an earthquake, yeah.
And then he said, you know, we get this call from this orphanage where they knew us already. That whole thing seems so strange, where it's like they knew us already and they told us, we have this girl. Are you interested? You have 24 hours. Like, is that really how adoptions work? Where it's like you have 24 hours to decide, or the deal's gone or something?
I
Like, what
highly
was
doubt it.
happening? So that seems very strange. And then when he describes the orphanage, he talks about how the orphanage was in this bad part of town and kind of gross and all these things. He really, I mean, anytime he could paint a picture of, you know, good versus bad, like wealthy, poor, he was painting it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unreal.
Yeah, and so then they go to court and they somehow convince a judge to change her birth certificate
Yes.
to say that she's now 22 or
That
something.
she was born in, well, and mind you, they took her to the doctor. They took her to the doctor in 2010. Doctor estimated she was about 8 years old. They took her to the dentist to get x-rays in 2011. They said she's about 8 or 9 years old. They take her and do a bone density test in 2012. They say she's about 11 years old.
Well, that tracks.
All of these, they have gone to the doctor and, you know, many, many, many times to get this. And each time they guesstimate, maybe they're a year or two older, but it's always that. And somehow it's one medical doctor's opinion. There's some sort of letter in there, and the medical doctor is Michael's primary care doctor. And the letters are never verified. And I don't know if they took that letter to the judge. It's so bizarre.
Yeah, who is this judge who just signs something like that?
So basically, they say, oh, they finally, and during this time, from the time that she's adopted to the time that they put her in this apartment, she is horribly abused by Christine, abused by the other boys, abused by Michael. I'm sure Michael doesn't want to admit anything, but like, she is horribly abused, that apparently she was urinating in weird places. And, you know, maybe they claim that she was rubbing fecal matter on the walls. We don't even know if that was true, if maybe Christine was doing it and claiming it, you know, and what they were doing was they were using this and sort of and going to their kids and saying, look at what Talia's doing, or look at what this is, sort of instilling fear in the boys, their 3 boys, against her. And, you know, bedwetting is a huge red flag for sexual abuse. Huge. And that's the thing. Like I swear to God, it was almost like it was like this purse she didn't want anymore, Christine. Like, ooh, it'd be nice to have this nice purse. And it's like, oh, the purse doesn't make me happy anymore. So I just, you know, I'm just going to get rid of it. And it becomes this systematic thing where they decide to look at her trauma and her situation and abuse her for it, essentially, instead of seeing it as a cry for help or pain or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, they were clearly not getting her any mental health help because a mental health professional would recognize these things. And I think she was also acting out sexually, which again is a sign that someone has sexually abused you.
Well, and then Christine also was using a lot of this. She was claiming that she claimed that a therapist, that she took Natalia to the therapist told Christine, this girl's a sociopath and you need to lock her in her room. And I just want to tell you something that no therapist would do that. I mean, you would lose your license, but also this is the other thing is that sociopath isn't a diagnosis. There is no diagnosis called sociopath. And also with kids under the age of 18, you cannot diagnose them with which is a personality, like sociopath, psychopath, antisocial behavior. Those are personality disorders, and there are other names for things that you can maybe diagnose a kid with if you see them having issues like conduct disorder or something like that. But it's just interesting. It's like, there's no therapist in this world, I will tell you that much, that would not only say this but also say it in this way. That's all.
Yeah,
that's why she's a big fat liar.
Well, yeah. And that's that again, going back to the fact this is not a documentary. None of this stuff was verified.
Yes.
And I took her to a therapist who said this. Well, who's the therapist? Why didn't we hear from the therapist?
And you went for one time and the person,
And they said, lock her in her room. And you go, oh, all right.
Yeah. Well, apparently, the police did get called at one point because Natalia was sleeping on the porch. Christine had locked her out.
Oh my God.
And took her bedroom away. And she did horrendously awful things. This little girl.
See that? I'm getting upset just listening to this.
It's awful. It's awful. Truly awful.
And then they decide to basically just throw her away, and they drop her off at some apartment in the hood.
Well, the first apartment, I guess, apparently was a little bit nicer, but still on her own. So,
and she's only really 10 at the time, or 10.
Yeah, she's
or 11.
8 or 9 at the time. So this is was it 20? So yeah, the book The Spark came out in 2013, and the whole thing with The Spark was that Christine, the big thrust of the book was like, everyone told me my son isn't going to be able to walk or talk or tie his shoes. And instead of, believing all that, Christine started taking him to college classes, and he's now doing TED Talks, and he's, this precocious kid. And so they go on this huge media tour, and they do all this stuff. And essentially I think it's around 2014 where the boy Jacob gets accepted into a school in Canada, and they want to go to Canada. And one of the things that this Stephanie Harlow found was that this was from 2017, but Canada's immigration, we have this idea that Canadians are real nice and friendly and warm. They're not. They
don't want us to move there.
They're as effed up as we are here. Yeah. Basically, that in the Canadian immigration, at that time, they do not let people with disabilities in, even deaf.
Wow.
So yes, because they don't want anything. They're considered non-desirables because they don't want anything that's going to impact their system.
They don't want people taking money from the system and not working and paying taxes.
Yes. But they basically just blanketly say, well, if you have all these disabilities, then you can't come. What if you're deaf or blind and you're doing great and you're not going to take anything? So there's also some thought that they were like, oh crap, we're not going to be able to take Natalia with us. And she's going to slow us down and get in our goddamn way. Oh. So we really need to figure something out here.
And so their solution is to basically just abandon her in
an apartment by herself.
Sad. Yeah, and she's going around knocking on people's doors, just asking for food. And, when some people finally start showing up, this adult center that she used to go to reported her to the police, and everyone there thought she was a child. The police saw her, thought she was a child.
Everyone thought she was a child.
Everyone is like, what is going on here? So then
she's in one apartment, and then that's in a nicer area, but what happens is that she's the problem is I think there's lots of stairs. There's, not really great.
Yeah, it's not handicapped accessible.
Yeah, and she's alone. She doesn't know how to cook. She doesn't know how to do anything. She has like a food allowance. I don't know. I mean, so she starts going to all the neighbors and talking to them. And of course, they all think she's a child. But of course, then because Natalia is so abused and she's a victim, she's got no boundaries. And I think that was the thing. I think a lot of people were like, oh God, she's so annoying. And so all the neighbors got annoyed. And so they didn't renew her lease. So then they're like, well, okay, let's put her in a new apartment. And they put her in this apartment in Lafayette called Lafayette. And that's not a great neighborhood, where it is just really high crime, and even worse, and they dump her there. And again, no help, like, no way to even turn on the stove if she tried to cook.
Right,
like, if you can imagine that, being alone, little girl, like, no school? What happened to school?
Yeah.
What happened to anything? And so of course you're going to whomever. And apparently there was one older man that she would go visit with for hours upon hours, and no one ever stopped to think, well, isn't that odd that a man, that this little girl, it's unreal what these people did.
Yes. So eventually she meets this new family, the bishop, Antoine Mann and Cynthia Mann. Again, I didn't watch it, so I'm not quite sure how they hooked up.
They're in the apartment. They live near where she was placed in Lafayette. And I think it was one of those things where she just kind of wandered over. They saw her and she started, and they're like, oh, we have lots of kids. You want to come hang out here? And they were there with her. So they took her in, but very quickly what happened was that they got their Social Security checks. So apparently the Barnetts were collecting Social Security for Natalia, and they were getting the checks and then giving Natalia an allowance. They claim like, well, we use that money to pay her phone bill and her light bill and her this and that.
And she's living with them now, right?
So when the Manns took her in, I think the Manns went to the Social Security office and got that circumvented. Yeah. So that really pissed off the Barnetts.
Oh, yeah.
Despite the fact that you're so wealthy that you needed $1,400
a couches.
Yeah. I mean, why do you need $1,400 a month or whatever it was? $700? I don't know what the number was.
I don't know.
But that really got them irate. But the way apparently the second season of the show ends is on a cliffhanger with Antoine Mann saying, oh, wow, there's something not right about her.
Yeah. Which, again.
Yes, we all know that.
Yeah, there is some. What did you think? That just because, there's these people who think that, oh, well, we're such a loving home. Anyone who comes here is just going to thrive no matter what they've been through. Yeah. What you think you're just going to take in this highly, highly, highly disturbed and traumatized person. And just because they're in your home, like everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
So they're not prepared to deal with any of this.
Yeah.
But again, the quote unquote filmmakers make it seem, now we're all thinking, oh my God, well, maybe she is a sociopath, like it's not, the cliffhanger is not in her favor.
Yeah.
So now everyone's going to be speculating all this time, what it was about. And, like I was saying before, like this second season, I started to watch the episode where, she and Michael are sitting down together to talk, which quickly blows up.
Yeah.
And it should not have been done that way. It should have been done in a therapeutic session.
She shouldn't have been out there, because she does say to him, I forgive you, Michael. And I'm like, why? How did we get here?
Right.
And we haven't even processed any of this.
No. He just started immediately. I think she said 2 sentences and he started having a tantrum.
Yeah.
And just started going off, and so nothing was accomplished with that. And it was just, she was just ganged up on by him. And it's just like,
his whole thing, the second season, was he comes back around and he says, okay, things are coming to light. So he basically blames everything on Christine.
Right.
So he says it was Christine that would abuse her. It was Christine doing this.
Because they're now divorced.
Yes.
Right?
So they get divorced in 2014. I think very quickly up in Canada, things go south. So he comes back down to Indiana. Of course, he could take her back in, Natalia, now that but he doesn't. So they're divorced. And so he claims that he was, abused just as much, not just as much as Natalia, but he was this husband that couldn't stop her. And then he does this demonstration where he basically acts out Christine beating Natalia. He's like whacking. I'm not even joking. I saw the clip, like, okay, come down. He's like making the camera get down on the floor with him. Come down here. Let me show you. And you're watching this going, and he says that he walks in on this. You're thinking to yourself, he is a grown adult man. And this is a woman. I'm sorry, but you could take your wife. Men are always stronger for the most part. Beating this little girl. And your response to this is, that was bad.
Yeah.
Or do nothing, or sit on it all and not say anything.
Well, he's such a liar.
He is such a liar.
It's so clear. Word that comes out of his mouth is a lie. And this entire program is built off of that. So I just think it's a piece of garbage.
Well, the other thing too is we see, right? I don't know if you saw these clips. We see that Jacob isn't doing too well. You know where Jacob's living now? This precocious hotshot kid. He's in Michael's basement.
Oh.
He's got long hair. He's like, he's traumatized by it because basically, and there's a hot mic moment too, where the documentary filmmakers are interviewing Jacob, and he's very much defending mom a lot. He's defending Christine. He's, saying that I've kind of regressed, and I don't know what he's doing with his life now. He's in the basement, so not that much. It's sad. It's not even a nice basement. It's like cinder blocks and a bed pushed against it is sad. So apparently he goes up at one point. He doesn't realize he still has his mic on, and he starts talking to Michael about like, well, I don't want to bring this up. And I mentioned this, but I didn't mention this. And then he realized, he's like, oh crap, I have this mic on. And, I don't know. He realized he kind of spilled some stuff. He says, this is what he says, that Natalia claims that the three boys did abuse her and beat her. And Jacob says, he goes up to his dad and he says, oh, I didn't talk about kick down the stairs. I mean, it's just unbelievable, because what they were doing to their kids was, I think they were pretending or telling the kids like, she's this, she's weird. And I think also she did act out in different ways. And I think there were some things that were odd. And I think that obviously these boys, instead of stopping and educating them and saying, listen, this is what's going on with her, this is why she's acting this way, they weaponized that and they used it against her. So they turned the boys against her as well. And now I think poor Jacob's trying to unpack everything to figure out, right? Like, my mom, who I spent all this time with, who was supposed to love and care about me, is also this abuser, and my father is this person. And what I think is hilarious is, the spark, like your methods have to last. When you come up with a concept or an idea, you need to have some backing that it works over time. And so obviously she doesn't know it. She's horrible.
She's just made all, and that was all made up too. It was just, she's not a researcher or.
Yes. What I don't understand is this. So the Barnetts are, in 2019, the Barnetts are, Michael has to go to court. They were charged, but so Michael does go to, so they both were charged because the police start to get wind of everything that's going on. All this stuff's coming out. And, Michael goes to court, and basically the way it worked is the court wouldn't let them talk about the Natalia age thing. They couldn't present anything about this other stuff, this abuse stuff that was happening. The case became about whether or not Michael neglected an adult with special needs.
No, they're still doing this adult farce thing.
They couldn't prosecute because of the age issue. And they also couldn't prosecute because by now it's 2019. So she's only 16. Yeah. So by now, but there's also a statute of limitations. So the prosecutors decide to push forward, and then he gets acquitted. And the jury members were saying, they've interviewed them, and they said, no, we know, we didn't want to acquit this guy. We did think he did something wrong. It was just the way in which the instructions they were given from the judge, they had to, based on the instructions, based on what they were supposed to do, say that he's not guilty. But they were all like, oh, he's guilty. He's absolutely guilty. And then Christine, they were going to charge her, but then they had to drop it because they didn't have enough evidence. So I don't know. I don't know if they're going to try again. I don't know if they can try again to prosecute Michael on different charges. I don't know. But the fact that these two are walking around free is unreal to me.
And getting airtime on this stupid show.
Yeah. Oh, and so this is the best. So Christine, who's been silent through all of this, after the, I think the second season airs, and she does this Facebook post to the world. And it is the most bizarre Facebook post because mostly you would think that she would get on there and say, these things are false. I have my own story and I will tell you when I can, or whatever. Or either you keep your mouth shut or you claim your innocence. What she does is she gets on it, and it's all about oh, you all want to make me into a Kardashian. That's okay. And, all these people want to date me. It's all about that. And about her sex life, because a bunch of sexy texts came out between Michael and Christine during their divorce, during, the trial. So a lot of people were commenting on that. The entire thing was about, it was so narcissistic. It was just all about if you really want to date me, if you're a loser, don't talk to me. But she says, if you're George, Joe, or Elon, maybe I'll take your call, kind of thing. I mean, and you're like, well, who's George and Joe? I know who Elon is, but George Clooney, Joe Biden? Who are we talking about here? But it is true. It's this long post. I mean, I can't even tell you how bizarre it was.
I can't. Oh God, I just can't with this.
Yeah.
Now, where is the support for Natalia Grace? Why isn't she getting the Gypsy Rose treatment?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, she is saying that I can't talk because I have this another episode coming. So maybe she
getting paid for this?
Hopefully.
She must be getting paid for it if she's cooperating and she's not talking.
Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully she's getting paid for this now. But, and she, again, also, when you see her interviewed in her own ways, she's just she's got a lot of those sayings too of I'm strong now and I can do it and I have big plans for myself and I'm not looking into the past and I've moved beyond this. I mean, I think that's that same thing where she says, I forgive you, Michael. I think she feels like I need to forgive him in order to get to my redemption, to get to my Kardashian redemption place, to get over here, versus really stopping and thinking, or doing any of this. And she is still, what is she, 21? She's still very, very young.
Yeah, I feel so awful for her. This is not a good situation. And I don't think she has anyone reliable to help her, to support her. I don't know. I don't know if she's still with these people, the Mans. I don't know. We don't know. We don't know what's happening. And yeah, I don't know. I can't I can't take this level of trauma. This one is just
awful.
Really gets me. And yeah, and I don't like the trend of this where, this has become our entertainment now. Yeah. Come on, people, make some real documentaries because we will watch them, and make them 2 hours or less, please. Because I love documentaries, and a well done documentary. There's nothing like it. And it doesn't need to be, less is more. Yeah. It's Doesn't need to be so long. Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, and then, but this is what we're seeing with this Natalia Grace, right? Which is, there was such popularity for the first one, so there's the second one. But it's true. We've made Michael Barnett, right? I mean, yes, he's everyone's ripping on him and making fun of him.
But he does not deserve this attention.
He doesn't deserve any of this attention, any of this focus, any of
our time.
I hate the fact that I know who these damn people are. And I'm sure people are buying the book The Spark and reading it. And I do. I mean, listen here, we can't be too hypocritical. We're here talking about it. So, obviously there's this interest and desire.
But we're talking about how awful this documentary is. We're not talking about, the case. We don't want to. That's why we didn't really want to talk about it.
That's why we were so resistant. Every time someone brought it up, we were so resistant to it, to talk about it. But because it is a lot, it's very heavy. It weighs on you when you consume these things. But also, right, especially after Daughters of the Cult and some of these other documentaries, I mean, that one was hard too. I think it's very different when you watch something like Twin Flames, because that is, these are adults, they get into it.
This is a child.
Children is so hard.
I know. Well, okay.
All righty.
Let's wrap this up. Did you start us off?
Yes, I did. Thank you so much for joining us. If you like this podcast, if you could please, if you haven't already, can you please give us a 5-star rating? It really does help us. And also, if you would like to subscribe, what's stopping you? Please subscribe to the podcast. So that way you get the episodes in your feed every week. We are continuing our Sister Wives Rewind on Tuesdays. And then Thursdays will be documentaries and other shows and other things of interest. Follow us on Psych Legal Pop at Instagram and TikTok. And if you want to reach out to us for whatever other reason, go to psychlegalpoppodcast@gmail.com. If I missed anything? I don't think so.
That's it.
All right. We'll talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.
I'm here on the job site with Dale, who's a framing contractor.
Hey, good morning.
Dale traded up to Geico Commercial Auto Insurance for all his business vehicles. We're here where he needs us most.
Yep, they sure are.
We make it easy for him to save on all his insurance needs, all in one place, with coverage that fits his business and bottom line. Oh, I shouldn't have looked down.
It's all right.
We're so far up here.
Look at me. Take a deep breath.
Oh, I'm good. So good.
Get a commercial auto insurance quote today at geico.com and see how much you could save. It feels good to Geico.